Hey guys, how you doing? This is Rico Cortes from Wisdom and Torah Ministries. I'm so happy that I have an opportunity to now do an interview in English. I want to do this in English, and I have a person that I met a few years back when I was doing when we were introducing the Temple app. He granted an interview. He wrote a really nice piece. I'm very grateful for that. And now he's being updated with all the information directly from Israel in regards to the heifers, the fake altar that people keep saying is an altar, the temple, the Passover so-called letter that's coming up. And I want to ask him certain questions. And the reason why I'm doing this, Adam, and his name is Adam Berkowitz. He doesn't like when I call him Rabbi, but I call him one time Rabbi
No.
Berkowitz. He told me he'll kill me if I do that. But thank you, Adam, for coming here today. I really appreciate it. And by the way, thank you for all of the videos that you've been putting out. They have been very, very informative. And I wish you spoke Spanish so you can do it in Spanish, because the problem that we're having in the Spanish world right now, we have certain people, and there's one particular organization that I'm a little indignant with them because they just refuse to do the right thing and validate information. And it's frustrating because it doesn't matter how much we study the topic. And you know that I focus a lot of my energy with my teacher, Joseph Good, studying the temple to know the proper things and to find the proper things. And then anyone just gets on social media, says some crazy stuff, and you'll be laughing when I share with you some of the crazy things he said.
I just want to add, the Gemara in Masechet Bracha says, teach your tongue to say, I don't know.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
right.
a huge lesson. The only way you can learn is by saying, gee, I don't know. And then you learn something new. And I can guarantee that these people who are saying, the red heifer will be sacrificed on Passover. First of all, it can't be sacrificed on Passover. That's forbidden. Guaranteed the day after Passover, it's as if they never said it. They'll never say, gee, I guess I was wrong.
And that's the problem. So I would like to go with certain topics. And by the way, thank you the other day for doing that video. And you mentioned my teacher's name, and then you mentioned my name alongside of him. I want to let you know that was an honor hearing that, especially coming from somebody like you in Israel, who is recognizing the work that we're trying to do to learn the proper way and to present anything that Kedusha, things that are dealing with Kedusha, holiness, like the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, the proper way. And I want to thank you for recognizing that. I'm honored. Truly, I truly am. So
we call we don't have a name for like a scholar or a genius. We call them a Talmid Chacham, someone who is a student of a wise man. So if you are a student of Joe Good, then I know that you're on the right track, and then some.
And you know how well received he is in regards to the temple service and the Beit HaMikdash in Israel. I mean, people don't realize in the Western world the resource that we have.
There's so few non-Jews who have mastered the material, and he taught me several things. He knows his stuff, and that's important.
Absolutely. And I've been studying that for a long time, and thank God I'm gaining a lot of credibility because with him I have applied myself to make sure. And you know how he is. He's very demanding to the details, and he wants to make sure. One thing that I love about Joe is that he's not afraid to correct something. And I want to be like that. I want to be like that.
Not only me, but I know that when Joe comes to Israel, a lot of doors open up to him that are not open to everyone. Because recognized scholars and people who are really very serious, they acknowledge and they recognize that he's a good one, and they do connect with him.
Right.
And that's very rare.
Well, let me give you an example so you can validate this. And this is part of the conversation. So I'm going to start with my last point and work my way up again. And based on the point that you just made, that Joe is very much, he has access to the Temple Institute back when it was established. And
that's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Rabbi Mackover, who's one of the leading rabbis of the temple in Israel,
He's a personal friend of mine. I first met him 30 years ago. I was single, and I used to go to his Shabbos table. He used to live in Bahrain.
I have privilege. I'm going to meet with him, God willing, when I'm there in May. I'm going to be there in May, by the way. I look forward to see you there. And I had a chance to talk to him because Rabbi Persoff, Joe introduced me to Rabbi Mackover through Rabbi Persoff. So, Rabbi Persoff, Mordechai Persoff.
Sure.
These are scholars of the temple in Israel, by the way. And And also, tell me a little bit about Rabbi Ariel. I don't think the audience really understand who Rabbi Ariel is in regards to the temple knowledge.
Okay. Rav Ariel is what we call it Tzaddik ben Tzaddik. He's the righteous man who's the son of a righteous man. His father, Rav Yisrael Ariel, when he was in his early 20s, I guess it was, he was, in a yeshiva student and learning, and he was in the army. And he was with the forces that conquered the Temple Mount. And they conquered the Temple Mount from the Mount of Olives, and then they went over and down to the Kotel, to the Western Wall. So what happened was, after they conquered the Temple Mount, they were going to go down, and there was a firefight on the Temple Mount. His officer said to him, "Look, we're going to go down, but we need to leave some soldiers up here on the high ground to protect their back." So most of the unit went down, and Rav Ariel and a few other guys were the first Jews to be on the Temple Mount in hundreds and hundreds of years, and they were alone. I don't know what that's like. I can't even imagine. But not soon after the war, not long after the war, he established the Temple Institute, Rav Ariel. I mean, I guess his experience on the Temple Mount, he's like, it's time. And unfortunately, the Moshe Dayan gave up the Temple Mount. But Rav Yisrael Ariel established the Temple Institute, which is these are subjects that had not been studied.
Right, that's true.
Intensely for a very long time.
So let me ask you a question in regards to Israel. The number one scholar in Israel that you know of right now in regards to the temple is Rabbi Ariel.
Rav Ariel, it's hard to say who's the greatest scholar, but he's certainly one of the leaders, and he established the Temple Institute. And back then, I mean, I think Rav Richman, who was also, he's no longer with the Temple Institute, but I think he got put in jail a couple times because it was considered incitement to learn about.
That's true.
To learn about Solomon's temple.
That's crazy. So now you have Rabbi Ariel Israel, Rabbi Israel.
Right. And his son, Rav Azariah Ariel, was following in his footsteps. And he went into the Temple Institute. And so when the Temple Institute decided to start looking for a red heifer and reestablishing the learning of the red heifer, they tasked Rav Azariah Ariel with it. So he's Rav Yisrael Ariel's son.
Got it. So you have these people who are actually working together with Joe, and now I got the privilege to have that access, which is incredible. I mean, to be able to learn from people in the land of Israel who deal with this all the time. So okay, so let's take some of these topics, and the latest one will be the Iran war. The Iran war. I'm trying to be a little.
Do you want to tie the red heifer into that?
No, not at all. But
no, I mean that's Hamas. Like a week after the red heifers landed in Israel in 2022, they said this is unacceptable. The Jews are going to rebuild the temple. And then after October 7th, the spokesman for Hamas said that the red heifers were the cause of the war. And Rav Azariah Ariel told me, he said, they don't need a reason to kill Jews.
Exactly.
That's what they do. They just needed, and this is if I made one point, he said, and I mean, you have to listen to what people like this say. They're on such a high level. He said to me, they only needed an excuse to give to the world so the world would blame us.
Well, that's exactly it.
And that's exactly what happened.
That's exactly it.
Now you have people saying these religious, fanatic, Orthodox Jews want to bring back the temple, and they're causing the war.
Right.
No, what's causing the war is Hamas. Hamas is Iran.
And how are you doing? How's everybody in Israel doing right now? We know
thank
that.
God. Thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God a rocket fell about 200 yards away from my house.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been very quiet up here. I'm in the northeast Golan.
Yeah.
And
beautiful area, by the way. Katrine, right?
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And the northeast Golan, Kiryat Shmona was evacuated, and that's been getting pounded several times a week since October 7th.
But you're in Katrine, right? Katrine?
I'm in Katrine, which is the northeast. I'm about 10 miles, less than 10 miles from
I go there all the time on my tour, and we go to the museum there in Katrine, and then we also go to that old community they have, ancient community they have there.
Right. But you never stop in the distillery?
Oh, of course I do. And I also stop at the olive oil place, and then I have the best burger And
and
then I
there's the
have
beer
one of the best
place.
burgers of Bashan up there. It's really good. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have been spared. We had one incident, I guess, about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, when a bunch of rockets fell a couple miles outside of the city. But Friday we went in knowing that there was going to be an attack. When Shabbos went out, I guess around 10 o'clock at night, a friend contacted me, said, "You better check the news." Drones were on the way, hundreds of drones, which is a
Yeah.
weird feeling. You're sitting in your house waiting for the drones to arrive. And so I guess around 12:30, 1 o'clock, um, a bunch of rockets, maybe 10, 15 rockets, fell outside of the city. It was closer than before, but still nothing to worry about. We put all the kids down in the living room, said, keep your shoes next to you, get ready, get your good shoes that you can walk through rubble with, because we might have to. We had all our go bags ready by the front door, but my wife was like, look, we're not going to get to run to the bomb shelter. The bomb shelters, we have 2 bomb shelters, each of them about 30 to 50 yards away from our front door. You don't have time. Usually the sirens sound after the rocket attack.
Yeah.
What happened was, by 3 o'clock, my kids went to sleep, and 3 o'clock, I finally dozed off. 4 o'clock, the siren went off, and literally less than 5 seconds after the siren went off, the rockets started falling, and this time they were inside the city.
Wow.
And they didn't hit. No one got hurt. No one got hurt. No buildings got destroyed.
Wow. Praise God
Also,
for
when
that.
they built this city, the houses, Syria was a serious threat, so that's why we have so many bomb shelters, and the houses are built out of reinforced concrete.
Right.
They were built to be bomb proof, so it's not so crazy to stay in the house when the bombs fall. And the rocket fell. There was one rocket that fell a couple hundred yards away from my house, but thank God, thank
Well,
God.
I'm glad you guys are doing good. I got my own personal opinion, if I may share it. I feel that although it was a heavy attack, uh, my opinion will be based on the geopolitical issues going on in Iran. I've been keeping up with what's going on internally, and I don't think it's to their convenience for them to poke the bear too much, because if something happens, the whole community in Iran, their own people, they don't want the government. They're looking for an
Right.
excuse to get
Well,
rid of.
you know what might change the tides really fast?
Uh-huh.
There's a Christian revival going on in
I
Iran.
know. It's huge.
It is a huge
It's
Christian
huge
revival.
going on, and people don't know that, by the way.
Right. They don't. No one talks about. If I could find a pipeline into that, I'll write about it.
Yeah.
But there's a huge Christian revival going on. You have to remember that Iran is not Arab.
So the
Um,
Parsis.
they're not only that, they're not Arab,
Mhm.
and they're Shia. They're
Right.
not Sunni. And I mean, I'm older than you. I remember when Iran was Persia, when Iran was
Right.
not the Islamic Republic of
Yeah.
Iran.
Man, do I look that young? I'm
No, I
58 now, man. I'm
I look
58.
that old. I wish I was still 58. Young boy. But Iran used to be a very modern, very friendly to Israel. Very friendly
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
Israel.
With the Shah of
Uh,
Iran, they were very friendly to Israel.
yeah, there were a lot of Jews there, and the women had, the a lot of the professionals were women.
Mhm.
Um, it was a lovely place, and then they overthrew the government, and you got what you got,
I
and
got you.
they're this close. They're this close to overthrowing, and because America won't put their weight behind opponents to the government,
Uh-huh.
and and Obama and Biden chose to funnel billions of dollars to the Islamic government.
I know it.
The popular uprising is not happening.
So let's move on something that you just said. We're gonna cover a whole bunch of stuff.
Sure.
But
Rapid fire.
yeah, but it goes all along with everything we're talking about, because see, personally, I feel that Iran was saving face. They didn't do it when Trump was around, when he eliminated
Right.
one of the generals.
Oh,
They're saving face because you got to think. I mean, they do have an advanced technology and weapons. You mean to tell me
yes, they
that
do.
everything is going to miss? And then now this is really what I don't. What I'm glad that the Creator defends Israel, but what is really amazing to me, they have no common sense. they start moving and inciting some of the Palestinians living in Jordan to turn against the government of Jordan. So now Jordan says, we don't want the Palestinians, and we're going to help
Jordan
Israel.
shot down
I
rocket. It's
I
insane.
know.
Saudi Arabia. All of
I
a sudden,
know.
all of a
But wait
sudden,
a minute.
Arabs are protecting Jews.
The reason is because, well, one thing you just mentioned. If people knew the difference between Sunni and Shiite, then you'll know why they were doing that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting. Now we have the
Yeah.
Arabs shooting down rockets they're supposed to go against Israel. God is so good.
Indonesia, which is not Arab, they're signing a peace agreement with Israel. Or
Really?
yeah. Indonesia is
Wow.
the largest
Muslim,
population.
yeah.
Right, it's the largest Muslim nation in the world. So
Okay.
after that, there will be more Muslims aligned with Israel than are aligned with the Palestinians.
That's amazing. So
It's-
if I don't know if the audience have really dedicated time studying the differences between the Shia and the Sunni, but when you understand the
Well,
difference,
that's the weird thing that Hamas is Sunni,
I
but
know.
they're aligned with they're Sunni Arab, and they're backed by Iran, which is Shia non-Arab.
Well, this is the reason why the Iranians let them just threw them under the bus after they incited them to turn against Israel. Don't you? I noticed that Iran
Everyone
said,
threw them under the bus.
I
Everyone.
know. But
And
do you know-
also Hezbollah and Hamas are enemies like you wouldn't believe.
yeah.
And especially Hezbollah hates the PLO. The PLO was in Lebanon, and that was Sabra and Shatila, and it was horrible. They hate Palestinians.
By the
Jordan,
way,
of course, hates Palestinians.
you know, the people living in
Well, they don't hate Palestinians. They hate Hamas. Okay,
yeah,
that's
the
because they're mostly Palestinians.
the people living in the mountains of Samaria, you know, that are being taken over by the Palestinians. You know that they call the West Bank when in fact it's not. It's Samaria.
Yeah.
But those people there, they don't like Hamas. The government are not too friendly with them per se.
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
Well, only when it deals with Israel, they're together. But between
Right.
themselves, they're
Yeah, of
fighting all the
course.
time.
Of course. I mean, we know that Mahmoud Abbas is in his 17th year of a 4-year term.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
we don't know what they want, and they don't know what they want because Muslim nations don't believe in democracy.
That's true.
And it's not a values judgment. That's just the way they are. So
that's
they
a
don't
fact.
pick their own government. So it's really
That
hard
is
to say
true.
what they want.
So if you look at, if the audience will consider doing quick research on Sunni and Shia, then you'll understand why Saudi Arabia they don't want certain people. And they're actually, it's to their convenience that Israel attacks Iran and destroys their nuclear weapons. Because then the Shiites and the Sunnis, specifically Iran and Saudi Arabia, they have a huge conflict for years. They hate each other.
Do you have a map in front of you?
Not in front of me, what I can find.
Okay, so I have homework for you.
Oh, okay.
Look at where Saudi Arabia is.
Oh,
Look at where Kuwait and Bahrain are.
Yeah, no.
Okay, you have the straits
Hormuz?
Hormuz that it basically blocks off the Arabian Sea. So
Right.
to ship any oil out of Bahrain, Kuwait, or Saudi Arabia, you basically have to cross through Iran's backyard.
Correct.
And Iran has shut off that strait several times.
Let me share the screen so they know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Hopefully you can see it.
Right, perfect. Okay. So if you see Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia, the only way they can get oil out is through the Strait of Hormuz, and that's Iran.
Yeah.
Okay, and that Iran is now the Houthis are shutting off also, and the Houthis are in Yemen are battling Saudi Arabia. Correct. Now, if you take a straight line from, let's say, southern Kuwait, and you take the straight line through northern Saudi Arabia to Israel,
okay,
you get to a lot.
Correct.
Okay.
Right here in the bottom.
Now, what a lot of people don't know is we were talking about old Iran. Iran used to be an ally of Israel. Why? Iran used to ship out its oil to Eilat. There is a pipeline, an oil pipeline, that runs from Eilat to Haifa.
Oh, I did not know that.
No one knows it. Okay. So they used to ship the oil to Eilat, offload it to this pipeline, go through the pipeline up to Haifa, which is a deep water port on the Mediterranean. They'd reload it onto oil tankers and then send it out to Europe. Why would they do that? Because if you don't do that, you have to go through the Strait of Hormuz, around to Egypt, and then go up to the Suez Canal. I was told it costs $250,000 to take a super tanker through the Suez Canal, which is a big chunk of change. And the Suez Canal is over 100 years old. You can't take the big ones through.
That's true.
So they used to take the really big ones into Eilat, pipe the oil up to Haifa, and then from Haifa, load it back onto a super tanker and send it out to Europe. So what happens if you build a pipeline from Kuwait to Eilat, and then the pipeline makes a right turn up to Haifa?
Wow.
That
That's
means
a lot of money lost right there.
That means you save the money and you don't have to go through the Suez Canal. You don't need to use smaller boats.
Uh-huh.
And you don't have to deal with Iran.
Correct.
And it's shipping, which is it's piping, which is much, much cheaper than shipping.
Yeah.
So and it goes to Haifa, which is a deep water port, and then you can load up the biggest super tankers there are and send it out to Europe or wherever you need it. Why do you think the Abraham Accords got signed?
Yeah.
Business, dude. It's business.
Yeah, of course.
And their business is oil.
Of course.
So Israel is their solution for the Iranian threat to their oil, and for that's one of the reasons Egypt wasn't so happy with the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, of course they would
Because
eliminate
they're
them
going to lose
altogether.
the revenue for the Suez Canal.
That's
So
really good.
That's
really
business.
good. That's really good information. I did not know some of those details. That's really good.
Right.
I got to go back and look that up too. That's cool. That's
Right.
good
I
to
mean,
know.
it's the Middle East. We're all neighbors.
Yeah,
The best business is with your neighbors.
That's true. Okay, next question real quickly. And please, let's go really slow because this part I'm going to edit out of this video to make sure I send it to a particular organization who is really bothering me. It bothers me because, okay, look, I've never pretended to know everything. I never pretended to think that I know everything. I'm continue to research and study because I want to learn more about how to do things right. But one of the things that bugs me is when I see people within the body here, within the people who are supposed to know better, and they start sensationalizing and they start fear-mongering and they start lying. And then they use their resources, and because they don't read the Hebrew, they start making up stuff. And I already addressed it with a Spanish website on Spanish organization on Facebook. And the guy will not respond. And he says, well, the Temple Institute released it. Yeah, but it has a context. And they refuse to.
No, that wasn't. You talking about the document?
No. Something else about the.
Oh, okay.
The guy was saying that the Cohen, the 15-year-old kid, who's a Cohen.
Yeah.
He's saying that the Temple Institute may think that may be the Messiah, and that that.
What?
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like, no, he's just a Cohen.
The Messiah can't be a Cohen.
I know.
The Messiah comes from the tribe of Judah.
I know.
Cohen is the tribe of Levi.
That only goes to, this is my point. So when I mention to that, and I tell them that, it's like, it bothers me because it only takes literally 4 or 5 minutes to know this. If you really diligently do process and read the proper resource. So let's take it nice and slow. Because, I want you to tell the audience, the people that that are directly connected with the Red Heifer, that I could pick up the phone and call you and ask you if piece of information related to that is true or not. So the players are, go ahead, that about the Temple Institute is one. Rabbi
Machover, Rav Yisrael Ariel, Azaria Ariel, of course, Rav Yisrael Ariel, but I think he has less hands-on. Our Mordechai Persoff, who's the only one who, Rav Machover speaks some English.
Yeah.
Mordechai Persoff speaks English very, very well.
Uh-huh.
Azaria Ariel doesn't speak English at all.
Right.
And I mean, anyone else? I even found that the Temple Institute, sometimes there's a little disconnect there, broken telephone.
That is true. That is very true. I noticed that too.
Yeah.
So out of that line, out of those names you mentioned, I have you, one of the resources, you, and then Bonnet Israel, which are the people connected with the Red Heifers.
Right, but even there, I mean, I love Byron Stinson. Wow, he blows me away. He's a doer. He makes
I
things happen.
met him. He was a nice man. Very nice man.
Very nice man. I
Yeah,
love him dearly. But to be honest, even from the outset, he's not the decision maker.
true.
Um,
But he
Rav
knows
Tzachik
about it.
Amo.
But
Rav
he knows
Tzachik
about the
Amo
process.
he's an interesting dude.
Yeah.
He, he what's strange about him, first of all, he used to the way he got, I don't want to say got prominent. He used to work with an organization called the Teret Kohanim, buying properties in Silwan, in East Jerusalem,
Right.
properties that used to belong to Jews, and they would buy them. And when you buy properties from Arabs, it's a capital offense in the Palestinian Authority. They will, if they find out an Arab sold a piece of land to Israelis or to Jews, they'll murder them. So it has to be done very, very carefully. With a lot of, they spend a lot of time and money protecting the Arabs that buy their properties
Yeah,
or that
gotcha.
sell the properties.
Makes sense.
And that's what he used to do. So one of his first interfaces with the whole project was to buy a piece of property buy the piece of property on the Mount of Olives, which they believe is the site. There's still discussion about it. Nothing is locked in place, but
Well,
that's how he got involved.
so let's go through the steps of the red heifer again. The red heifer, the altar that CBS News was announcing. That's a reenactment altar's medal. It's kind of funny. People don't do
It's
they don't do the
sad.
work.
It's really sad. Right. So CBS News, they did an article documentary. First of all, the guy who wrote the article has a long history of writing articles that are anti-Israel.
Yeah.
So when they did this thing on the red heifer, I did an article. I went through it step by step to say what they even wrote that the red heifer was written about in the book of Numbers in response to Rome destroying the temple.
What?
You heard me right. You heard me right. They changed that because I pointed it out, and I'm like, what are you going to say? That God wrote the Torah, or because of in response to the Romans? It was insane.
That's crazy.
They took that out, and then I mean they did say, oh, it's done on the Mount of Olives, and then they show this altar, this white altar. What that is? It's a near full-size model,
Right,
of the altar that stood in the temple. That model stands in a town called Mitzvah Yericho. It does not stand on the Mount of Olives. It does not stand in Jerusalem. It's in Mitzvah Yericho.
how far
It's
is it?
only used for educational purposes. And they themselves said the red heifer is built on the Mount of Olives. So, and then they show the red heifer is done on the Mount of Olives. And then they show an altar that stands in Mitzvah Yericho. And also, the red heifer is not burned on an altar.
I know it's on a pit.
It's
it takes about
burned on a pyre of wood. So what are they showing this altar for? What they want to say? Oh, they built an altar for it already. Hey, no. So why are you saying it? You're saying it just to get people riled up.
So let me ask you a question then. So let's break it down. There's a research. I think there was a scientist or a doctor. I can't remember his name, who did. And Joe gave me the article. It's 2018 and 19. They actually slaughtered a cow, not a red one, a cow.
Burned it.
Yeah, they burned it. I think you know about that. And
Dr. Zohar, I wrote about it.
that's
sure.
it. Oh,
Dr.
that was your article.
Zohar, I forget his last name.
Yes, you're the one who wrote the article. I called you on that to make sure everything was on point.
Yeah.
To move 1.4 tons of wood, it's not going to take an hour.
And not only that, he wrote in the article that it took like 2 days to burn.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking a huge amount of wood and a cow. So
3 days
when they say, oh,
ashes.
it's going to happen on the eve of Passover. No, because if you light it, even on like the day before Passover, it's going to keep burning during Passover. And that's forbidden. You can't light a fire or stir a fire or anything on Passover. The red heifer cannot be done on the day before Passover. Can't be done on Passover. Can't be done on Shabbat.
By the way, on that point, there were some people saying, all the prophecy teachers, they were saying that they're going to slaughter the sacrifice, which is not a sacrifice,
It's
the
not a
red
sacrifice.
heifer on the Sabbath of the Parah Adumah. And I'm going like, you cannot start a fire on Shabbat. Plus, the
But
reason
you
why it's
can for the
red,
purposes of the necessary sacrifices on Shabbat.
correct,
Like
that's it.
but
But
the
that was on the Beit
but the
HaMikdash.
red heifer is not a necessary sacrifice. You could do it the
Exactly.
next day.
Right. But the fire was already on.
Yeah, but you're burning it outside, and you have to collect the ashes, and you have to
Right.
make sure it burns completely. There's
You cannot do it.
nothing about that that can be true.
Exactly. So therefore, when you know this stuff, and you know the amount of time I spent with Joe studying the temple, right? So we know these things, and we put it out, and then we're the crazy ones, but then everybody goes running after the fear mongering
Right.
people, and I don't
Well,
understand it.
why do you think they do that?
I have no clue, man. It frustrates me.
I have some very
Please.
unpleasant thoughts. People, because these are people who are already predisposed to hate Torah Judaism.
Yeah.
So if there's a crazy story, doesn't matter how crazy, but it ends up making Jews look like the ones who incited the Arabs to war, they'll go with that.
Yeah, and it's pretty sad.
There's a guy, he even wrote, "Oh, the red heifer, it's evil." I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
and I'm like, evil? It's in the Bible. You know?
Yeah, I know.
What do you-
It's a chukah. It's a decree.
Exactly. And I'm like,
You know.
how can you say it's evil?
And
It's
you
the
know when
Bible.
and you know when there's a chukah Pesach, or a chukim, you can't change that. That's really
Right.
separated for God.
Right.
Very
I,
interesting.
I think these people, they hate Jews, which, let's say there's a good reason to hate Jews. But what do they really hate? They hate the Bible, they hate God. And if we're doing something, even if you don't agree with it, even if you say, look, Jesus was the sacrifice, you don't have to do the red heifer, but you should be able to say, but it's the Jews and they're doing the Torah and they're doing it in Israel, and let them do it. But they're saying, oh, it's the Jews, and those evil Jews are doing Jewish things.
It's it's to me it's very sad to see that we have all resources available right now. Within 2 seconds, we can go even on Google and look something up, and you have the ability to validate or not validate information. You can go to, I have a Bible program that I could put in a word, and I have over 2,000 resources that I could draw from, validated resources. And here we don't want to use the people who are focusing on the resources, the proper information to gather the information. They're going to just people who are not equipped. And that's sad in my opinion. So we have the heifers, there's 2 left. There's not going to be, as far as we know, you can corroborate this with me, that there's not going to be a red heifer slaughter before the Passover. It will be impossible.
Oh no, before Passover?
Yeah, there's no way. It's on Monday.
No, it's not going to happen
It's a
before
week Monday.
Passover. I don't think it'll happen soon, but it might.
It might.
It might.
Do you think it may be connected with the possible attack of Israel to Iran?
I don't think there's any connection.
Okay.
No,
the timing. I mean, the timing.
Right.
It's
I don't think.
severe
I'll tell you why. People are making a big. First of all, they've been working on a red heifer for 12 years. They've checked other red heifers.
Yeah.
The red heifers have been in Israel for 2.5 years, since September 2022, or for a year and a half. When they got off the plane, Hamas already started threatening them.
Yeah.
There's nothing new here.
That's true.
There really isn't. And we're not working on a schedule, because the main thing is it's got to be perfect. All the boxes got to have the checks. Everything has got to be in place perfectly. Once every 1,000 years, you don't get a second shot, and it's a very rare animal. So it's got to be perfect. The heifer, the Kohen, the pathway up to the place, everything has to be perfect.
Oh, the pathway. We just found, archaeologists found the city. I mean, the road from the city of Shiloach all the way up to the.
And we knew that it was there.
I know.
It's not like, and it's been there for 2,000 years. So there's no timeline.
But wait. Let's go back to the point that you just made, because many of us, I was at this particular congregation yesterday. They were really amazing people. and I was trying to outline for them what I saw prophetically, the steps to look for. And this is what I shared with them in the short time that I had. First, you have to have the heifers. We have them. Then you have to have the location of the Mount of Olives. For what I understand, we have it. Then we will have to have the temple. The Temple Mount. We don't have that yet, but we have the
No, you don't need
Shiloh.
the Temple Mount for the red heifers.
No,
You
no,
don't
no.
need
I
the Temple
understand.
Mount.
I understand. For
Okay.
the development of everything else.
Oh, okay.
Okay, for the altar, Beit HaMikdash, for the Mizbeach, for the altar.
Okay, but you don't need
Okay.
that for the red heifers, and the
No,
red
no, no, I
heifers don't.
understand, but you need the
Okay.
Mizbeach for many things to occur. Now,
Okay.
then we have the waters for the ashes. We have that for the Shiloh.
Sure.
Okay, now we have the pathway, which is a pilgrimage road.
Well, you have to build like a bridge kind of thing over it because
Well, that's a Kidron Valley.
that prevents the Kohen who's going to do it from becoming ritually impure.
That's for
Because
the
he's
Kidron Valley.
He's walking near graves or over graves.
For the Kidron
So-
Valley, I got you.
Right, that has to be done, and we have to, of course, have to have the Kohen.
Right, but what I'm talking about is the pilgrimage road from the Shiloh. If we need to go get that water, we have the stones hidden for 2,000
Oh
years.
yeah, sure.
That's what I
sure.
mean. So we have
Sure.
that ready. So there's a lot of things really taking place that we've never seen before.
That's also true.
Since the first century. It's
also
very
true.
exciting to
Very exciting.
So
and not only in connection with the red heifer, and so many other things. It's just, and people don't, something, I was talking to someone today about it. Yeah, red heifers, amazing. Meanwhile, if you go to Jerusalem, you can see the menorah, the golden menorah is there. The Kohanim have their clothes. God willing, on Thursday, I'll be going to a reenactment of the Korban Pesach, of the Passover offering.
If we wanted to say it again, reenactment, please.
A reenactment, absolutely. It is not the real Korban Pesach.
Well, somebody's going to run with
it.
You know that.
And that's a very important thing, because if you bring a goat or sheep to sacrifice and you say this is for the Korban Pesach, all of a sudden that's a big sin, and you can't use it, you can't eat it, you can't touch it.
Right.
It's so it is absolutely a reenactment for the purposes of education and learning. We're learning how to we're relearning how to do it.
Allow me to share the reason why it's not allowed. First of all, there's not an altar right now on the Temple Mount.
And Jews are only permitted from when King David established the temple on the Temple Mount.
Right.
The only place we are permitted to bring a sacrifice is on the Temple Mount.
Correct.
So we can't do it anywhere else.
And you have to eat it within the city walls.
We have to eat it within the city walls, and there are a lot of rules about the Korban Pesach.
Absolutely. That's another thing, because the walls that you have there now, they were not, the ritual of the Kohanim to dedicate it is not. So that's another thing they have to figure out. Do we have to get rid of those walls and rebuild them again? And
there's so many questions. Once you start with the questions, there are questions after questions after questions. Good question. And some of the stuff is like, the modern reality has changed a lot of things. And there's a Rav Ariel, he wrote a book, very complicated book in Hebrew, about laws having to do with the red heifer.
Yeah.
When they shipped them over, they didn't have ear tags because that would have been a blemish. So they inserted an RFID chip, and they had to figure out where they could put it that it wouldn't leave a blemish.
Gotcha.
So there are questions like that. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with the fact that whenever they had a red heifer before, they had the ashes from the previous heifer? We don't have that. This is the first time we're doing a red heifer ceremony without ashes from the red heifer.
Can you imagine if in some of the archaeological digs, they find them? Because because they were kept in certain places around
Vendel
Jerusalem.
Jones, they were stored all over Israel. Right. Vendel Jones was on the trail of finding some. And I know for a fact that he found a large quantity of temple incense in Qumran. Cool. It's crazy.
So this is what we established already. Let me review for my brothers and sisters that are here watching and listening. First, the heifers, we have two. They will not be slaughtered by Passover. the altar is not a real altar. It does not require an altar for a slaughtering. By the way, in the Hebrew, it doesn't say korban, it says shchita, which is like a slaughtering for the red heifer. People need to know the differences, because what happens is, if it says an offering, then it has to be according to the Torah law. It has to be done in a particular place.
Right.
And you know,
And it has to be burned on an altar, on the altar.
on the altar.
And there are rules about how it's done.
Correct.
And you can't just and you're not allowed to use even the ashes of a sacrifice. You can't use, it's called me'ila. You can't use any part of an animal
that's true.
that's hekdesh, that's been sanctified.
Well, I mean, the book of Numbers 18, 1-4 clearly says that only the priest can handle anything related to the altar. Not even the Levites can touch the altar. So
Right.
another thing, one of the details that you need to be aware of, if ever the slaughtering of the heifer are done on the Mount of Olives, pay attention to the body of the heifer. It has to look a certain way. The legs have to be pointing a certain way. The priests have to be standing a certain way. You got to know who receives the blood, and then you got to know how the blood is actually sprinkled. If they don't follow any single one of those steps, it's not a legitimate offering.
Right. We have one shot every couple thousand years. We're going to do it perfectly right. There's no rush. There's no rush to do it wrong.
So let me ask you this question. People don't know, just let me say it. People don't know you're a rabbi. You don't like the title, but I want to ask you a question as a rabbi. Okay, so if you're watching the events on the Paraduma on the Mount of Olives, which I have a feeling that you will be there if it happens. You want to see that. Yeah, that's an event. That'll be the event. Anyway, if you go to the Mount of Olives and you see the whole protocol, and then you see the face looking east in the wrong position and the priest giving the back to the to Har HaBayit, what would you say as a rabbi who understands these requirements? What would you think about that particular ritual at that moment? Would it be legitimate or illegitimate?
It would be illegitimate. And I mean, you can't just walk up to a Talmid Chacham, a scholar, and say, "Hey, this is wrong." I would walk up and say, "Excuse me, Rav Makover, Rav Ariel, I was wondering, I thought I learned it like this. Could you teach it to me properly?" And then I'll be like, "Oh, now that you mentioned it, yeah, that's not right."
Yeah, but
that's the way you should do it.
I agree. And the point that we're trying to make here is that even if you have the heifer, even if you have the Mount of Olives, even if you have the Cohen, even if you have all those things, you still have to be aware of the little details that the Torah prescribes in order to be legitimate.
Right. Everything has to be perfect. Like I said, we're not in a rush to do it wrong. We get one shot every couple thousand years, and this is it.
Perfect. All right. So another question, and I'm so grateful for your time. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much. Passover letter that you read that wait, let me preface this. Let me tell you what's going on. This particular organization, sensationalist, fake news. I'm sorry, I had to say it. Okay.
Oh, worse. Yes, it was really bad fake news.
They were saying that the Temple Institute put out the letter, and that they're actually getting ready to do the Passover sacrifice. That's what they're saying. And when I saw the letter and I saw your video explaining what it was, you gave detail on it. You know, it's the letter of the organization that I've known that every year they submit it to the police because they want to do certain things, and they always get turned down because it's illegal.
To the specific letter. I don't know where I put it. I mean, it was what people were saying about it was wrong from beginning to end.
So tell us about the organization and what the letter is about, and what is the context of the letter.
Okay. The letter was a request. Oh gosh, I wish I could find it. The letter was a request from an organization called Chozrim La'al, Return to the Temple Mount. Okay, and it was a request from the police for a public gathering. And the request was for the afternoon of the 14th of Adar. I forget the English date, but that's just before Passover. And they were requesting to begin at the Western Wall and to go up to the Temple Mount, to take a knife, and Kohanim wearing the proper garments
Uh-huh.
to sacrifice in the proper place at the proper time. And they estimated 10,000 people would show up. I'm trying to think what else they asked. That's pretty much what they asked for. It was written in Hebrew. It was a printed form from the Israeli police, and the requests, the answers were, blanks were filled in with handwriting. The head of the organization is a guy named Raphael Morris. I've interviewed, I've spoken to a couple of times. Really nice young man, really nice guy. So there were people who I've seen speak about this document and write about this document, mostly speak about it, because they probably don't want to be called on their lies afterwards. This document does not even mention red heifer.
Mm-hmm.
It does not mention a cow, even.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about either a goat or a sheep. They're talking about the Passover offering. These are people, as I said, returned to the Temple Mount. They have nothing to do with the Temple Institute. They have nothing to do with the Red Heifer, the Return to the Temple Mount movement. And they do this every single year. I write about it every single year. So one of the reasons, every year they make the same request, and every year they get turned down by the police. And every year they try to bring up a goat or a sheep anyway, and every year the police arrest them. Okay, every year.
So this is the problem that we're having, and this is the reason why I called you. And by the way, you granted a last minute interview. I called you and you say yes. And this is the reason why it is important for me to call you, because you know the person who wrote the letter.
Yeah,
so
sure.
We're not getting information from 3 or 4 or 5 different sources creating their own narrative.
No.
And
No.
you know, we need to. I'm blessed that I could call Joe for any temple information. I could call, Rabbi Persoff, and he can communicate with Rabbi Mackover. And this is one thing I'm trying to convey the message when it comes to things. If you were, let's say you were in the United States, I know you're from Jersey, right? But if you were in the United States and you were to ask the question about anything related to the temple in the Western world, who would you call?
I'm sorry, who would I call?
If you were in the States and you need an answer on the temple for temple related things,
Joe.
who would you call in the Western world?
Joe.
So
no question.
Even you, with the knowledge that you have in the Hebrew and the Torah and the Talmud and the Right and all that stuff, you would choose to call Joe because you know he's a credible source.
Oh, he's totally credible.
That's the one I call. Yeah. So why is it then that the audience does not recognize the sources that God has put within our own community, and they go drawing for sensationalist people who do not study the subject? And by the way, and I could ask you this question, I know the answer. You will hear one guy on the internet for 1 minute and he doesn't know what the heck he's talking about.
Right. Why does he do that? It's clickbait. He's trying to get the attention. And I mean, it's a little bit more work to find out the truth. I can't tell you. I mean, I've been a reporter for 7.5 years. I've written over 4,000 articles. I never learned in university how to be a reporter. Okay. But I can't tell you how many times you got the internet. I'll find the phone number of someone. I'll call them and it'll be about a story that you see all over the internet. And I'll call them and they'll be like, wow, you're the first guy that called.
Yeah.
I'm like, there are 50 stories written about you. 50 news reporters didn't bother picking up the phone. And
by the way, this is what I told that person, and I hate to do that. The only few things.
The phone numbers are on the document.
I know. And what's interesting is
numbers of the Return to the Temple Mount guys are on the document.
The
numbers are not in Hebrew.
And this person, I said, hey, if you like, we can have a meeting. And I started mentioning your name, Rabbi Mackover, Rabbi Persoff. I said, Joe Good, we can have a meeting with the people who know, and then you can ask them questions directly. I have still not heard an answer.
I got to tell you something. I've been doing videos. I only started doing videos because this whole thing about the red heifer got me so angry.
I
It
know.
was, I just saw so many lies, and
Just
I'm
a
like,
little
I
bit,
can't.
just a little angry.
I just, yeah, I did one video where I was really fuming. And now there are people, they'll take my videos and they'll put my videos, they'll show my videos where I'm giving all the reasons, saying why I'm credible, give all my reasons, and say this, it's not going to happen on Pesach, or it's not going to happen before Pesach. They'll show my video and they say, oh, the reason why he's wrong is because they wouldn't tell us the truth.
Okay.
And they'll be showing my videos. And then their videos will get 250,000 views.
That's crazy.
And my video will get like 10, 20,000 because I guess people prefer, and it's the same search engine.
It's
I
terrible.
guess people prefer prefer a lie.
Okay, so last one, and I promise I'll let you go. And I appreciate your time. Again, this person is saying, and please don't laugh too hard. Promise me.
Okay.
Okay. The person literally said on the video, and I saw it, I heard him say it in 2 or 3 videos that he made, that they are, and let me share what I'm saying. And I'm going to show you pictures of what the guy supposedly is saying. Okay. Okay. The guy was saying that they are actually building the temple. It's a
I know what he's talking about.
subterranean temple.
What?
Yes. That the Jews are
So
ready
what
to
are the
build the
pictures
temple.
he's showing?
No,
I'll tell you, I did write a story.
He's not showing pictures. He is saying that, and I'm going to show you what he's referring to. You can tell this guy's never been there. Okay.
Okay. I want to say I did write an article a couple years ago where there was a rabbi I respect an awful lot. And he did this thing. He would take like stones to yeshivas, and he would take a hammer and chisel, and he'd say, okay, we're preparing stones for the temple. And people would, chip away at it a little bit. And then he'd take it and put it in his backyard and store it away for when the temple gets built. He was doing it so that people would feel like they're actively involved in building the temple. But he wasn't doing it on the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of thought that might have been what you were.
No, that's not it. This guy, he is saying
Okay.
that they're building the temple, a subterranean temple. Watch. What he doesn't know, I'm going to share the screen, that that outside the Western Wall, there's a huge, they used to call it the rabbinical tunnel back in the day. They call it the Western Wall tunnel, with
sure.
Okay. You know that recently, when you go there by the hotel, you have the whole plaza, and right about 3 meters below, they found the Roman Cardo, right?
Sure.
So, you know this because you're in Israel. Let me show you the pictures real quick of what these people are saying is the temple being built subterranean. Now,
this is going to hurt me. I know this is going.
This picture is actually entering from the west, going towards the hotel. This is the ancient road of the Cardo, right? So when you go through here, this is underground where the people stand with the flag of Israel.
It's nowhere near the Temple Mount.
Nowhere near. This is outside the retaining walls. No one can build a temple there. These people don't know what they're doing. That's my tour, by the way, that I took there with the archaeologist called Barak. He's now serving.
Wait, that's near the Cardo, right?
I'm sorry?
That's near the Cardo, right?
No, that's actually right by the hotel. You know the plaza?
Oh, are you talking the western, the southern wall, the southern section?
No, the western wall, but where the plaza is, underneath of it, they found all the stuff.
Oh, okay.
This is like 4 meters below the ground above. And
okay.
This is what you see the first century street right here.
Right. Okay.
So this is what these people are saying is actually a temple being constructed. And I'm going like, what are you talking about? The temple, subterranean temple? It's ridiculous. This is right under the temple, the Western Wall Plaza. When you're waiting there, when you go by the hotel with
okay. You know what? You know why they're digging there? If I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, they're putting in an elevator for for people in wheelchairs. So
Yeah,
they
no, no, no.
started doing digging, and they found the mikveh.
Exactly, exactly. And they,
Right.
they
They're building an elevator there. Like
uh,
not an elevator, like a elevator, like a
right.
huge elevator, and it's going to go down, and there's going to be a big walkway with underground walkway with stores and everything. They've been building it for a while, and they found the mikveh there. Of course,
And,
I mean they're going to
and
find a mikveh, but
they did a like a little like a shul right down there by the western wall. It's very pretty.
yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah.
they're actually saying, "Oh, well, that's actually the Sanhedrin, and that's actually part of the temple." And I'm going like,
I wish it was. I wish it
right?
was. I
What is
wish it
that?
was. I used to have a friend. I wish I could remember her name. She just sent me a WhatsApp. She used to work for the city of David. And the city of David is a couple hundred yards downhill from the Temple Mount.
Correct.
And she told me, and I couldn't believe it. She said hundreds of times a day, tour groups would go to the city of David and say, "Where are the remains of the temple?"
It's crazy, right?
And these are people who literally just walked past the Temple Mount. And
You
they're
know how that came about? Do you know how that came about? You know who Ernest Martin was?
no,
Ernest Martin, you remember Eilat Mazar? She was a very well-known
oh, of
archaeologist.
course. Wow, I
I
loved her.
got the privilege, Joe and I,
Wow.
to meet with her. Right?
She's amazing. She was amazing.
She
Blessed
was
memory.
amazing. For the people who don't know, she was the granddaughter of Dr. Benjamin Mazar, who did some work in 1967 and 73 on the Temple Mount. Okay, one of the original
Yeah.
archaeologists there. All right. So I asked her who Ernest Martin was. I got his book. It's right over there. Okay. So Ernest Martin was a volunteer, a Christian volunteer to help them with the digs, right? So, and I validated this with her. And I asked her, who is Ernest Martin? Because he's the one who came up with the theory of the temple in the city of David. She goes, Ernest Martin was a really nice man. He was a volunteer. And my grandfather, he was not even an archaeologist. Okay. And then all of a sudden now she says, and my grandfather didn't want to be rude to him because he was a very big supportive, always coming to help. So he sent them to me because he knew that I would not, mince words. In other words, she said that. So she told him, she says, and this is why I get this quote. I use it all the time. Evidence establishes truth. And she
Yeah.
says, I told Ernest Martin that the evidence establishes the truth, and there was no evidence of the temple being in the city of David. And he decided to go alone anyway to do his thesis in a book. There's a guy named Bob Carnook. Okay, who came out.
Oof.
Tell me, what do you
Oof.
know about
Oof.
Bob?
Oof. I run across his stuff when I write articles. Yeah.
Okay, so he took the book and he ran with it. Now
Oh gosh.
the whole
Sure.
people saying the temple is the city of David. So there's not one piece of evidence that the temple is in the city of David. Now, let me share the screen real quick.
And a lot of evidence that it was not.
Right, of course. But
And
who
but
cares about
he's
truth?
also the guy who said that the Ark of the Covenant is in Ethiopia.
I know.
It's
Do you see? Do you see that picture?
yeah,
You know that picture. We all been there a whole bunch of times. You see the
sure.
construction here in the bottom?
Right, yeah.
Underneath that whole area. Those are the pictures I showed you.
Right. Okay, so that's not exactly where the elevator is.
No, that's not. But you see the construction here. The building is finished.
Yeah.
This was done about 7 years ago. But the whole area down here, they actually digging that out. They found the Cardo.
Really?
They found a whole bunch of stuff. Those were the pictures I showed you. It's not open to the public. I was actually Joe and Edgar Ramos, from the research team that Joe has, who connected me with this archaeologist that I was able to take my tour. Again, it was Edgar and Joe who got me the connection to get this information. And now people are saying that that's where the temple was. We need to mature, guys. We need to be responsible. We need to do research.
Can I be really like what they call in Hebrew, what they call in Israel, arba einayim, like totally straight and throw it on the table with you?
You are my guest, and whatever you say is your responsibility.
Okay. I'll tell you the problem. The problem is, I think, Jews, we look at the Bible as like real. It happened. When the Bible says Jerusalem, we take a bus to Jerusalem. You know where it is. When the Bible says, fringes on your garments, we look down, they're right there. Everything. So the red heifer, we're not talking about a parable. We're not talking about, if you want to make a parable and learn it to Jesus, fine. But first, it's a thing. It's a real thing. The problem is if everything becomes a parable to you and it's not really connected to reality, then it can be anything.
I
And
would agree with
that's,
that.
and
Yeah.
Judaism is like, you'd be shocked that, I remember once I was learning a Mishnah and they were talking about an animal that was impure if it could transfer impurity, if it was standing on a piece of cloth. So it said,
Okay.
well, if a horse is standing on a piece of cloth, and the cloth is behind its rear legs, it transfers the impurity. But if a donkey is standing on it, it's got to be in the front legs, because the donkey, most of its power is in the front legs,
Mm-hmm.
and the horse, most of its power in the back legs. I mean, I can't tell you how many examples I learned the Mishnah. They're dealing with nuts and bolts, down to earth, gritty. How does it work?
Right.
That very few parables, very few like moral lessons, very few allegories. How does it work? What is it?
Well, this is exactly what I did when I told you about the position of the head of the red heifer, the way
Right.
it's supposed to. These are the little details that will make you understand how things work. So you cannot take it lightly and you cannot reinvent the wheel.
Right. Wanting it to be true or a good idea in your mind that you're like, oh, this is very interesting. No. What is it?
Yeah.
These are 5 cows that are standing in front of you. And we're not talking about theoretical red hairs. We're talking about real red
Yeah.
hairs.
I've seen them too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
sweet.
we covered a lot, and I know you have to go, and I want to thank you for your time.
Okay.
Is there any way anyone anyone who wants information written, he writes articles. So if they need to get in touch with you, Adam, how can they reach you?
The best way, actually, I hate to say it, is Facebook. My Facebook, let me just double check. Facebook, it's I think it's Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. Yeah, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. Eliyahu is Eliyahuu, Berkowitz, Berkowitz. You can reach out to me. I have a YouTube channel, Wrestling the Angel. Wrestling the Angel. You can Google me, Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. You'll find me. You can send me an email to Eliyahu at Israel365.com. I'm pretty accessible.
I know. I called you. I sent you a message for us to meet after Shabbat. I was traveling, and then I called you this morning, and you say yes, and you gave us all the information. Therefore,
Yeah.
by that we mean that there's no excuse to find the right resources, and
Right. And even my videos where I talk about the red heifer and talk about the lies that are being said about the red heifer, I try to answer every comment, except for the really horrible ones.
Yeah. Well,
But
keep me in your prayers, because I'm going around as much as I can to try to bring more clarity with what I know, and I want to do due diligence to do the right thing.
I'm in.
So if I ever teach something that you hear that is incorrect, please bring the correction, because I want to do the right thing and present
Me
the right.
too, dude. Someone corrected me today because I was saying the red heifer has nothing to do with a sin offering. And then he pointed out that in Numbers 19, there are 2 verses where they talk about mechatat, nida chatat,
Purification.
purification.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, we understand it as purification.
Right.
But chatat means sin, and some
Right.
translations refer to it as sin. I was
Correct.
like, oh, so maybe there is like some under the surface connection to a sin offering, but
That
it's
would be that.
explicitly not a sin offering.
Well, it's like a prohibited commandment. You're not supposed to touch anything
Right,
unclean.
right. But the word chit does appear.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that was interesting to me.
But
So
by the way, the way we study it, we know that it means purification.
exactly.
So, yeah.
Mechatat is purification.
Uh-huh.
But I learned. I was like, oh, right, mechatat.
It's just
It
like
has
Joe
word
keeps
chit.
telling me, don't say sacrifice. It's
Right.
offerings.
Well, he learned that from Rav Richmond, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
Ah,
And by the way, the word sacrifice in the Latin really means to consecrate, But the way the Western world, and I've done this, by the way, I go to congregations and I say, okay, let me ask you a question. When I say sacrifice, what are you thinking about? And
Right.
everyone says death. When in fact, the korban means to draw near. So it's the
Right,
translation
right, right.
problem.
It's beautiful, It's like, do you want to have a korban to Hashem? Oh no, so slaughter an animal, call Pita. And I'm like, no, do you want to get close?
Right.
You
So words
know,
matter.
you want to have a Passover, we have a barbecue with Hashem. Passover is like the first Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I got you. Well, Adam, thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Very
Thank you,
grateful.
Rico.
And thank you for allowing me to be as more responsible resource in this side of the world and get and bother you all the time.
Sure.
Okay?
Be blessed, brother.
Toda Shalom.